These are the new Nisi Aureus lenses, a new set of PL mount cinema primes designed to sit above the Athenas in Nisi's lineup, sharing a lot of what made the Athenas so popular with customers, but refining them more for the mid to higher end of the market, while still keeping the price as affordable as possible. And just like the Athenas before them, these are very impressive lenses. The cinema prime market is becoming very crowded, but Nisi are really doing a good job of standing out from the crowd for all the right reasons. One of the main ways Nisi are standing out from the crowd is the build quality. Physically, these are very impressive lenses. You can tell instantly when picking them up. They feel great and really well made. The lovely felt-lined lens caps, which we loved on the Athenas, are back as well, and both the focus and iris rings have just the right amount of friction to them. The iris ring has quite a bit of resistance, so that you can move it nice and slowly to be really precise, and the focus ring is a middle ground. It's always a challenge for affordable cinema lens manufacturers. If you keep the focus ring really loose, like it is on some higher end lenses, then it works really well with wireless follow focus motors, but it can be hard to focus by hand. If you give it too much resistance, it's great to focus by hand, but you need a really strong follow focus motor to be able to work with it, and that strong motor can add shake to your rig. So, different brands take different approaches, but Nisi seem to have just gone straight down the middle, and I think it really works. This is a bit of a sweet spot, which I can see working for both kinds of work really well. We also have this striking glow-in-the-dark paint on the markings, which is really handy when working at night or on a dark set. For the most part though, these do just feel like slightly larger and heavier versions of the Athenas. They're very similar, and that is a good thing. Every customer we've shown the Athenas to has commented on how good they feel physically. One big change though is the PL mount on the back. Because the whole lenses are larger, they now don't have to extend past the end of the PL mount, which means they don't clash with PL mount adapters which use that space, like ones with the ND filter systems built into them, for example. So the Aureus lenses work fine with those adapters, while the Athenas never really have. They are just PL mount though, by the way. There's no interchangeable mounts here, just PL. And another change to the PL mount from the Athenas is the rear filter system. The Athenas had a rear filter system for the PL mount, but to use it you needed a special tool to unscrew the back element. With these, you can just unscrew them, which is far easier. Just a quick heads up though, this did catch me out at first. The rear filter does retract in and out as you focus. So you focus to infinity, it's really easy to access. But if you focus closer, it actually retracts down inside the lens, so watch out for that. They all have a 90mm front diameter, and Nisi are including a set of 95 to 90mm clamp-on adapter rings in each prime set of lenses, as most clamp-on matte boxes have a 95mm diameter. That's probably my only criticism of this design. It would be nice if they were 95mm front diameter and that those adapter rings weren't needed. Let's look at some images from the lenses. Overall, they have a really nice look to them. Subjects pop nicely with good micro contrast, outer focus areas look clean and smooth and not distracting, even in busy environments, and they handle flaring really well. In terms of character, these are clean and neutral lenses, just like the Athenas. There's definitely lenses out there with more character, but these give you a really nice neutral starting point, which you can then add character to with filtration depending on your subject. You can always add character to a lens when it's needed. You can never make a lens cleaner and more neutral. So this approach is arguably more suitable for owner-operators or rental houses, which need the lenses to work across all kinds of projects. Let's look at the controlled tests, starting with the standard interview style setup. They look great, and they stay very consistent as we move through the range, both in terms of colour and the optical character in the background. And at T1.4, we get lots of background separation, even on the widest lenses. And the bokeh is very clean indeed, no onion skinning or anything like that. It's very impressive. Breathing is very nicely under control. There's very little on any of the focal lengths. The 18mm does have a bit, 24 has none that I can see. 35 has a bit again, 50 has none, and the 85 has a really small amount. But overall, these are very small amounts of breathing. It's very impressive. In our sharpness tests, some lenses did better than others wide open. At the center, all of the lenses are a bit softer wide open, but the 35mm in particular has noticeably more blooming at t1.4. It's not unpleasant, it's actually quite nice, but it's one of the first areas that we found where it's not consistent with the rest of the range. At the edge, every lens gets less soft wide open. Again, the 35 is the softest here, and actually the 24 and the 50 do really quite well. And if we zoom out, this is also a good way of showing how much vignetting there is when wide open. And there is quite a bit across the whole range. So much so it almost at times feels like an exposure change rather than just edge vignetting. The flaring is very consistent across the range. They all have this cool blue flare to them with soft contrast ghosting around the light source. I've rarely seen lens sets which are this consistent on their flaring. And I think they look really nice. The 18mm has the most pronounced flare as you'd expect, being the widest lens, with strongest orbs and some quite large rings as well. But all of the others have actually quite subtle orbs and barely any of those larger rings. So that's the one consistency difference, but for the most part, these are impressively similar to one another. One of the big questions though is how do they compare to the Athena lenses, which, let's not forget, also look fantastic. We've always been really impressed with the Athenas considering their size and price. So let's look at a few real world shots just side by side. The first thing you notice is how similar they are. This is the same t1.9 iris. If we open up the Aureus to t1.4, you can see how much of a difference that does make. But at the same aperture, they look really close. Crop right in, and the Aureus does look sharper when they're both at t1.9. This is the 50mm lens. The colour though is really close. The Athenas are maybe a little more magenta, but there's not much in it. You could certainly cut between these with no issue, just like Nisi are claiming. This is a much closer performance between different lens sets than we've seen on some of the other brands. This is now the 18mm, and interestingly, even with them both set to t2.2, the Aureus is much brighter. This wasn't the case on the 50mm lenses at t1.9, so that makes me wonder if the 18mm Athena isn't actually quite achieving t2.2. It might actually be darker than that. So that's a big win for the Aureus, especially considering they can open up to t1.4 and let in even more light. And now when you do that, there is a huge difference. Another big difference is in the t-stops across the range. The Aureus are a consistent t1.4 on all 5 lenses, while the Athenas stop down at either end of the range. Now admittedly, the Aureus is only a 5 lens set at the moment. We don't know what t-stop any further lenses will be. But if you take the 18mm for example, the Aureus is still at t1.4, while the Athena has already started stepping it down to t2.2. So overall, just like the Athenas, the Aureus are really impressive lenses. Nisi are quickly becoming one of the main lens manufacturers to keep an eye on. I can see these being very popular with customers. The real challenge is going to be, should you buy these or the Athenas? These are better, but they're close. I think the choice is going to be made just as much on the physical changes like t-stop consistency across the range or the PL mount which works with ND filter mount adapters, things like that, as it will be on image differences. Both are great choices at the end of the day, and it really comes down to you and what's important for your own situation. So if you're struggling to choose, please do get in touch. That's what we're here for. We'd be happy to help. And if you'd like to buy them for your own work, then head over to ProAV. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.